How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today's Daf Mem Tes, the 49 of Masechta Shevuos. Friends. Well, here we are. The final Daf and the final Perek of Masechta Shevuos. I have a feeling this one is not going to be such a long one. Sheesh. I think over the past 2.5 weeks, it certainly felt like almost every single daf was an hour. Sheesh. It's like we're like it's as if we're mamish in the heart of Bava Metzia, which is actually a great segue to today's daf. Today's daf is, as I said, the last daf and the last perek of Masechta Shevuos. It's mamish called Arba'a Shomrin. So I think, as I pointed out recently, maybe yesterday, if anybody was sort of on the fence about is Shevuos is like mamish Bava Metzia, well, look no further than the last daf of Masechta Shevuos. Last parak is literally called Arba'a Shomrin Chevers. So there you go, and it's also a very, very sweet. In my heart, it feels like it's a very apropos and a very sweet way to end Masechta Shevuos. I'm crying a little bit, just a little. It's like, I was thinking, like, I'm not familiar with TV shows. Mamish. It's possible I've never watched. I'm not a TV show kind of guy. So I might be wrong about this. I feel like, when you have like a big TV series, so they get to the finale, and they have like, like Seinfeld. I'm pretty sure about that one. So they had the finale. Okay, and they're like all the past characters, they kind of incorporate into the finale. Well, chevre, lahavdil elef alfei avdalis. At least Seinfeld's a yid, but here on the last daf of Masechta Shevuos, it feels like it's the finale of Masechta Nezikin. After this, tomorrow already we're learning Masechta Avodah Zarah, which is still Nezikin. It's not such a long Masechta, and then after that is Harius, which is only 14 daf, and that's already about Paril and Davar Shel Tzibur, which is really seems like more of like a Kodshim thing. And Avodah Zarah is very interesting, a lot of Agadata, and talks about Avodah Zarah, but the real kind of sprint that we started with Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, Sanhedrin, Makish, Shevuos, Mamish, like the heart of Nezikin. It feels like, it's kind of, we're wrapping it up today. At the end of Shevuos. I learned Masechta Avodah Zarah 8 summers ago. I learned Masechta Avodah Zarah with my great chaver and chavrusa. We're still chavrusa. But now instead of every day, it's just once a week. That's the chavrusa that they get fashnikit with every week. So Rabbi Yosef Klutman Levitt. So we learned Masechta Avodah Zarah. I talk out his chus to be in Thailand when we were learning it, so it was mamish. Masechta Avodah Zarah next to Hagechke. But anyways, where are we? So anyways, the point I'm making is that in my heart, I feel like kind of this like deep dive into the heart of Nezikin that we started with Bava Kama, Daf Beis. I feel like we're kind of closing that up on today's daf, and how appropriate to mark this epic mission that we've been on with a Mishnah. In today's Mishnah, there's going to be, of course, it's called Arba'a Shomrin, and we're going to be talking about Daled Shomrin, which is like Bava Metzia, but also we're going to talk about some Bava Kama sugyas, and we're going to be talking about some Shevuos sugyas, and it's just kind of a very beautiful way to kind of bring everything together for a nice finale here at the end of Masechta Shevuos. Even in a certain sense, like Masechta Shevuos itself, the intensity of it. How many times did we say over the past few weeks, like, this is mamish, it's the missing chapter of Bava Metzia. It just brings back that intensity right here. So here we go. Everybody get a box of tissues if you need. It's going to be a very emotional daf, maybe. Here in Eretz Yisrael, we have bags of tissues. All right, let's go. Arba'a Shomrin, there are 4 custodians. Shomachina, the free custodian. V'ashoyel, a borrower. Nice, a socher, a hired custodian. V'asoicher, and a renter. Shomer chinam nishba ala kol. Of course, a shomer chinam is potter for everything. He just swears that he was not posheya. He swears that that there was no negligence, and so long as there was no negligence, he's potter. He doesn't have to pay for any scenario. V'ashoyol mishalim esakol. Now, of course, a borrower has the opposite scenario, the opposite predicament, where a borrower, he has to pay for everything, even ones, right? Even ones, even if it like drops dead, for example. You borrow an animal, drops dead, a shoyel is chai for everything. He's only potter for whatever, for certain specific scenarios. I'm not getting into that. Okay, but generally speaking, he's chai for everything. Noisei socher ve'asoicher, so a shomer socher as well as a renter, which, if you remember, if a renter, if a socher is like a shomer socher or like a shomer chinam. But anyways, our Mishnah is assuming, the Gemara is going to talk about a shtickle, but our Gemara is assuming that a socher is like a shomer socher. So a noisei socher ve'asocher nishbayin ala shvura ve'ala shvuya ve'ala meso. If there is an ones that happens, assuming that we're talking about an animal, let's say, so if there is an ones that happens, for example, it breaks, or it's captured, or it dies, so then they swear that they were not negligent and they're potter for that. But a shomer socher as well as a socher would be chayiv for gneva v'aveda. Shomer socher is chayiv for gneva v'aveda, but potter for onsin. Now, we're going to have these like different scenarios now in the Mishnah. So, basically the rule is, Mamish, like the Mishnah of Mamish ends with this rule, but the rule is, so basically what we're going to give a bunch of scenarios like the following, right? That, you have a shomer chinam, let's say. The shomer chinam says that the animal died. The fact of the matter is, the animal was stolen. The thing is, it doesn't really matter, because the shomer chinam is potter for everything anyway, so he swore that it died, but really it was stolen. But at the end of the day, it makes no difference. He's potter either way. So we're gonna have different scenarios for different types of shomrim like these, different scenarios like these for the different shomrim, but the basic premise is, look, if he swears one thing, but it was really something else, but at the end of the day, it's the same outcome, so he's going to be potter. So he's going to be potter. He doesn't have to pay anything, right? So if he was going to be potter anyways, right? So he swore for one potter thing, but it was really another potter thing. Or conversely, he swore for one chayiv thing, but it was another chayiv thing in reality. Again, there's no difference. Alternatively, if he swore that he's chayiv, even though he's really potter, also there, okay, fine. So he swore that you're chayiv, right? The only scenario where he would be chayiv. Right, so the only scenario where he would be chayiv, it would be if he swears that he is potter, but really is chayiv, right? So, for example, if a shoyel or a shomer socher swears that it was died, but really it was stolen, then he would be chayiv. Chayiv what and potter from what? We're talking about if he later admits that he was lying, so then, right, of course, Shevuos hapikodin, right? For example, if you have a shomer who swears that he doesn't have it, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but then he admits later, so as we learned, so he's chayiv in osham, he brings a korban osham and osham gizelos, as well as he has to pay back the item plus a fifth. So this requirement of keren v'chomesh v'osham, so when we're talking about chayiv and potter, that's what we're talking about. So for example, so if he basically swore that if a shomer chinam swears that it died, but really it was stolen, whatever, and then he admits, it was really stolen, it doesn't matter because he was potter anyways. Also, as I said, if he swears for one thing that he's chayiv, but it was another thing that he's chayiv, and then he says, it was really the other thing, again, he's potter from the keren v'chomesh v'asham because it's the same outcome. And also, if he swears that he's chayiv, for example, a shomer socher swears that it was stolen when really it dropped dead, and therefore he would really be potter, but he swore for something that he's chayiv, and then he says, actually, I was lying. Really, it's this other thing that I'm potter for, so he wouldn't have to bring a keren v'chomesh v'asham. The only scenario where he would have to bring a keren v'chomesh v'asham would be if he swore that he's potter, but really he was chayiv. Okay, so let's jump in. So Amr l'shomer chinam heichan shori. So if Shimon says to Reuven, who's a shomer chinam, all right, where's my ox? Amelo mace. And Reuven says, your ox, the one that you deposited at my house, it's dead. So Reuven swears that it's dead. And he's potuk, it's a shomer chinam. But the fact of the matter is, v'ushe nishbar. But really it broke. O nishba, or it was captured. O nignav, or it was stolen. O avar, it got lost. And now I'm just going to run through all these others, but it's basically the same exact thing. Reuven swears nishbar, but the fact of the matter is, v'ushe mes, o nishba, o nignav, o avar. Or he swears nishba, v'hu shemes, o nishba, o nignav, o avar. Or he swears nignav, v'hu shemes, o nishba, o nishba, o avar. Or he swears avad, v'hu shemes, o nishba, o nishba, o nignav. In all of these scenarios, right, and he says, Mashbiach ha'ani v'amar amen, potter. And then Shimon says, do you swear? He says, yes, I swear. He says, amen. And then he later admits that actually it didn't die, it got lost. Or he said it didn't get lost, but it died. Or it didn't get captured, but it was stolen. Or whatever it is. Reuven is going to be potter because either way, anyways, he swore falsely, but he swore about something that he would have been potter for anyways. So therefore, if he later admits, oh, by the way, it didn't die, it was stolen, he doesn't have to bring a keren v'chomesh v'asham. Okay. Heichan shari, still with Shimon and Reuven the shomer chinam, Shimon says to Reuven, all right, Reuven, where's my ox? Armlo, ein yodea ma'ato soch. Reuven says, I don't know what you're talking about. So now the thing is, he's being called for a call. You potter for a call. Now the fact of the matter is, v'hu shemes, o nishbar, o nishba, o nignav, o ava. Now the fact of the matter is, Reuven does know what Shimon's talking about, but the ox died or got lost or whatever. So basically he says, I don't know what you're talking about. And then Reuven would be potter, right, if he denies it. But he also would have been potter anyways, because it died or got lost or whatever. Shimon says, do you swear? Right? Shimon says, I swear you. Reuven says, amen. And then he later on admits, you know what, I do know what you're talking about, but it died. Well then, he is going to be potter. He doesn't have to bring keren v'chomesh v'asham. Heichan shori. Shimon says to Reuven, where's my ox? Amrlo avad. Reuven says, your ox, it got lost. Shimon says, I swear you. Reuven says, amen. But, now here's the twist. But then witnesses come and say, Reuven, ya son of a gun, it didn't get lost. You ate it. You got hungry one day. You ate the ox. And the witnesses testify that Reuven ate the ox. Well, then he has to pay for it. Reuven's a shomer chinam, right? If it would have, what do you say, got lost? If it got lost, he would be potter. But he's not allowed to eat it. He's not allowed to steal it. So the witnesses come and say that he ate it, and he had said that it got lost. So he's got to pay Shimon for it. Right? Mishalim Sakaren, he has to pay Reuven, right? The witnesses came and said that he ate it, so Reuven has to pay Shimon the value of the ox. But he still hasn't admitted that he lied. Hoda me'atzmo, if on his own he admitted, so then he has to pay keren, mishalim keren v'chomesh v'asham. Well then, if he admitted that he lied falsely, then he would have to pay keren v'chomesh v'asham. Heichan shori, if Shimon says to Reuven, hey Reuven, where's my ox? V'amarlo nignov. Reuven says, your ox, it got stolen. Shimon says, I swear you. Reuven says, amen. But witnesses come and say, it didn't get stolen. Reuven stole it. Reuven has it. Well, then that is Toyin Tainas Ganif, a Gemara from Bava Kamen. So he has to pay kefil. Right? He basically stole, he's a thief, he's a ganif, he has to pay kefil. Hodami atzmo, but what if he admitted on his own before the witnesses came? Well then, Moda b'knas is potter, you would not have to pay kefel. Rather, mishalim keren v'chomesh v'asham, if he admits that he swore falsely, so then he pays, right? Because he swore that it was stolen, then he would be potter for that. But the fact of the matter is, he himself stole it. He admitted that he himself stole it, and he swore falsely. So then he has to pay keren v'chomesh and bring a korban asham. Amar le'echad bashuk. Shimon says to somebody in the market, Heichan shori, where's my ox? Sheganavta, that you stole, you son of a gun. Who, Omer? And the son of a gun says, Lo ganavti, I didn't steal nothing. But witnesses witness him, testify that the son of a gun did, in fact, steal it. So now he hasn't swore anything. Right? And he says, Heichan shori sheganavti, Omer lo ganavti, v'edim me'idim osa sheganavo. So mishalim tashlume kefel, so the son of a gun needs to pay kefel. He's a ganif. If the son of a gun slaughtered the ox or sold it, so depending on if it's this is what Eichan shori, right? So that would be arba'a. But if it was a sheep, let's say, then it would be chamisha. Now, if the son of a gun saw that the witnesses were coming, but they hadn't yet said anything yet, and he says, okay, I did it. I stole it. I'm a son of a gun. He says, well, I didn't steal it. I stole it, but I didn't slaughter it or sell it. Well, then he only pays keren, right? Because since he admitted that he stole it, so he doesn't have to pay kefil, right? When the witnesses come and say that he stole it, so he doesn't have to pay kefil because he already admitted it. And since he doesn't have to pay kefil, so then even though so he admitted that he stole it, but he says, but I didn't slaughter or sell it. Even if the witnesses come and testify, not only did he steal it, but he did slaughter it and sell it. Nonetheless, he'd be potter for $1. Hey, this came up the other day, I think, because since he's potter from kefil by admitting that he did it, even though he didn't admit to the tvich umechira, but he admitted to the stealing. Well, then by doing so, he's potter from kefil. And once you're potter from kefil, so if you knock that off, then 4 and 5 becomes 3 and 4. But there's no such thing as 3 and 4. Amar l'shoyel. If Shimon says to Ruvain, now Ruvain had borrowed Shimon's ox. Ruvain is a borrower. Amar l'shoyel. Shimon says to Ruvain, the borrower, Heichan shori, where's my ox? So Amar lo. Ruvain says, Mace. Your ox? It died. It's in Muwud. Now the fact of the matter is, now a shoyel of course is chayiv for everything. A shoyel of course is chayiv for everything. So therefore he says that it died, i.e. it's ones, but he's chayiv for ones. But the fact is, so he said it died, but the fact of the matter is, vu shenishbar, o nishba, o nignav, o avad, or he said that it broke, nishbar. But the fact of the matter is, vu shemes, o nishba, o nignav, o avad. Or not Nojva, he says it was captured, but the fact of the matter is, Vushameh, so Nishbar, or Nignav, or Avad. Or he says Nignav, who was stolen, but the fact of the matter is, Vushameh, so Nishbar, or Avad. Or Avad, it got lost, but the fact of the matter is, Vushameh, so Nishbar, or Nignav. The thing is, in all of those scenarios, he's chayiv anyways. So even if he later admits, oh, by the way, I swore that it died, but the fact of the matter is, it was broken, or whatever, he's not going to be chayiv to pay keren v'chomesh v'asham. So mashbeach oni v'amin potter. Right? Shimon says, I swear you. He says, amen. So he's potter, even if he later admits that he swore falsely. He's going to be potter from having to bring keren v'chomesh v'asham, since at the end of the day it didn't affect the outcome. He didn't swear to make himself potter. He's a chayiv anyways. Heichan shoiri, Shimon says to Reuven the borrower, where's my ox? Omar le ein yodea ma tosoch. And Reuven says, I don't know what you're talking about. So now in this case, he's going to be potter, right? Shimon says, where's my ox that I lent you? Reuven says, I don't know what you're talking about. What ox? What's an ox? So then Reuven is potter. V'hu shemes, but the fact of the matter is that it died. O nishba, o nignav, o never. And he would be chayiv for those scenarios because he's a shoyel. but he says, I don't know what you're talking about. So he's trying to make himself potter instead of being chayav. Well then, Shimon says, I swear you. Reuven says, amen. And then he later admits, you know what, the truth is, it died. I know what you're talking about, but your ox died. Well then he would be chayav, because he was trying to he was making a claim that he would be potter for, when in reality, the reality was that he was chayiv. So if he later admits, he would be chayiv a keren v'choymesh v'osham. Omer la noisei socher. Okay, v'asoicher. Shimon says to a paid custodian. Reuven is a paid custodian or a renter. Heichon shoyri. Where's my ox? Omer le mace. He says, your ox died. Went to muwud. Now death is a ones. Vusha nishbar, nishbar. But the fact of the matter is that it broke, which is another type of ones. Nishbar was captured, which is another type of ones. Alternatively, nishbar. Vusha meso nishbar, nishbar. Vusha meso nishbar. Meaning all those are scenarios all of those are scenarios of ones which a shomer sacher / socher are potter for. Excuse me. Alternatively, nignav, he says it was stolen, which is something that he would be chayiv for, right? Shomer sacher is chayiv for gneva v'aveda. Vusha avad, but the fact is that it got lost. The fact of the matter is that it got lost, which is also something that he's chayiv for. He's chayiv for gneva v'aveda. Right? So nignav, vusha avad, vusha nignav. Right? He's playing around with things that he would be chayiv for either way. So first he was talking about different kinds of onuses that he swore about. Then we're talking about where he swears about different types of things of gneva v'aveda that he would be chayiv for. Shimon says, I swear you, and Reuven says, amen. Again, potter. If he later admits that he swore falsely, he's potter because he, either way, it was going to be the same outcome. So he's potter from keren v'chomesh v'asham. Mace, o nishbar, o nishba. If he swears that it died or broke or was captured, i.e. an ones that he would be potter for. But the fact of the matter is, vusha nignav o avad, but the fact of the matter is, it was stolen or lost, which is something that he would be chayav for. So he's trying to potter himself. I swear you, he says, amen, chayav. So in that case, he would be chayav, because he was swearing that he's potter, when in fact he was chayav. So then he's going to be chayav a keren v'chomesh v'asham. Avad o nignav, he swears that it got lost or that it was stolen, i.e. something that he would have to pay for. But the fact of the matter is, vushames o nishba, but the fact of the matter is that it was actually an ones that it would be potter for. Amen. Shimon says, I swear you. Reuven says, amen, potter. So if he later admits that actually there was ones, so he's potter because he swore that he was chayiv bets, and when in fact he was really potter. So if he later admits, he's going to be potter from bringing a keren v'chomesh v'asham ze'ah klal. And this is the rule, as I mentioned earlier, kol meshane michova lechova umiptur leptur umiptur lechova. Right? Anybody who changes in their swear from one scenario of chayiv to another scenario of chayiv, or from one scenario of potter to another scenario of potter, or they swear that they are chayiv but they're really potter. So if they later admit that they swore falsely, they're potter from keren v'chomesh v'asham. Mechova leptur chayiv. But if they are in fact chayiv, but they swear that they're potter, well then, if they later admit that they lied, they'll be chayiv keren v'chomesh v'asham. Ze'aklal, this is the rule called nishba lahakol al atzmo chayiv lachmer al atzmo potter. If he swears to make his predicament easier upon himself, i.e. instead of having to pay, he swears that he doesn't have to pay, well, if he later admits that he lied, so then he will be chayiv a keren v'chomesh v'asham. But if he if he swore that he's potter when really he's chayiv, but if it's the other way around, if he swore that he's chayiv when really he's potter, well then if he admits it later, he won't have to bring keren v'chomesh v'asham. Okay, so now going back to some bava kama, bava metzia stuff. Man tana aboya shomrin. Who's the tana who holds that there are 4 custodians? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Bar Avua, Rav Meir. Says Rav Nachman, and then Rabbi Bar Avua, it's Rav Meir. Amar, it's Rav Meir. Amar lei Rav Rav Nachman, but then Rav says to Rav Nachman, I don't understand. Miika tana de leis lei arba shomer. Is there a Tana who doesn't hold of the 4 custodians? When the 4 custodians are a thing. Everybody holds of the 4 custodians in the Torah. So Amalei says, this is what I'm saying to you. Mantana do Omer socher kenose socher domi. Right? Our Mishnah assumed that a renter is like a paid custodian, but that's actually a machloikes. Is a renter like a paid custodian or like a voluntary custodian, a free custodian? So our Mishnah said it's like a paid custodian. So who's the Tana who holds thus? So Rabbi Bar Avua, Reb Meir, says Rabbi Bar Avua that it is Reb Meir. Reb Meir Ipcha Shaminon Le, but I thought this is straight out of, I think, Bava Kama and Bava Metzia. I thought that Reb Meir Taka holds fakir, that a renter is like a shomer Desanyas, we learn in the Bible, says Soicher Ketzad Mishalim. How does a socher pay? Reb Meir Amar Shomer Reb Yehuda Amar say socher. Reb Meir says Taka, a renter is like a shomer It's Reb Yehuda who says that a socher is like a shomer socher. So Rabbi Bar Avua ipchatani. Yes, but Rabbi Bar Avua holds the opposite. Rabbi Bar Avua had a girsa that said the opposite, which is that Reb Meir Taka says like a shomer socher, and Reb Yehuda says like a shomer chinam. Hani Rabba avu shlosh avu. Look, at the end of the day, there aren't really 4 distinct scenarios of custodianship. There are 3. There's the shomer chinam, there's the shoyel, there's the shomer socher, and a renter is like a shomer sacher or like a shomer chinam, but there's only really 3 distinct categories in terms of liabilities. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Abba Shomrin v'tinein shlosha. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, look, there are 4, custodians, but yes, it's correct that there are sort of levels of liability. There are 3 categories of levels of liability and things that they're chayav for, but there are 4 distinct types of custodians: a shomer chinam, a shomer sacher, a shoyel, and a soicher. But yes, in terms of liability, you could divide them into 3 groups. Okay. Omar, where am I? Okay. So, Omar the shomer chinam chule, heichan shori chule, Omar the echad bashuk chule, Omar the shomer chule, heichan shori, Omar lo eni yodea ma tasach v'chule, Omar rab v'chulen peturin mishvuas shomrin v'chayev mishum shvuas bitui. So Rav says something very interesting, which is when we're talking about potter in the Mishnah, we're saying that by making this false shvuas shomrin, right? For example, a shomer chinam swears that it died when really it got lost. So they're potter from having to bring in a keren v'chomesh v'asham. What does Ashi say? Okay, this is asham, but I assume it's also keren v'chomesh. I assume it's also keren v'chomesh. It must be. Yeah, let me just check something. Yeah, that they're potter for keren v'chomesh v'asham in terms of shvuas apikadin, but they would still be chayav for shvuas bitoy. They still lied. They still swore falsely. So if it was by accident, you'd have to bring a korban shvuas bitur, right? So Rav says that while they're potter essentially for shvuas apikadin, they are still chayev for shvuas. Oh my gosh, are you serious? Oh my gosh, you don't know around here because if all of a sudden you hear like a sudden noise, it could be an attack from Yemen. But no, I think that's just the guy who's been yelling outside my house for the past 15 years. I don't know what he does the rest of the day. He just comes, usually around this time. Maybe he works. I wonder what he does. Anyways, he comes around this time. It's probably about 5 p.m. Comes around now, he sits down with a beer and just yells. Don't know about what. I think he talks to himself. Yeah, I think he talks to himself and starts yelling. Ever since I can remember, he's been doing it. I've been in this apartment for like 12, 13 years. He's like 12 years. He's been, ever since I can remember, he's been doing this. So Rav has an interesting opinion, which is that while he's potter for keren v'chomesh v'asham, he still did swear falsely, right? It's a Shevuos bitur. And right, is it right? Achalti v'lo achalti, right? He says it died, but really it didn't die. So Rav says it'll be chayev korban Shevuos bitur, whereas right. So Amar Rav v'chulim p'tur mishvuos shomer v'chayev mishum Shevuos bitur. U'Shmuel Amar Av p'tur mishvuos bitur. But Shmuel says no, they're also p'turin from Shevuos bitur. B'maikam, if again, what's the machlokes? The machlokes that we had earlier. Where was this machlokes that we had? This was on Daf Chof Hey, 24 pages ago. That's like 3.5 weeks ago already. That this was machlokes that we saw. Where it was b'maikam, if again, what's the machlokes? Shmuel savar leisa b'lahaba, Rav savar isay b'laveh. Shmuel says in order to be chayav for Shevuos bitur, it has to be something that is to futurize and to pasteurize. Of course. So Shmuel says you have to be able to futurize the Shvuah, and since you can't swear like it will die, for example, or it will be stolen, you don't know what's going to happen. So therefore, you're part for Shevuos bitur. Whereas Rav says, as long as it is yesable and knowable, it did die, it didn't die, well, that would be enough to be chayav for a Shevuos bitur. And therefore, when he says that, he swears that it died when really it got lost or something, so it'd be chayav a korban Shevuos bitur for that. But if ligu ba chadazim, no, but they already argued about this one time today. Itmar Shevuos shezarak ploni tzor layom, Shevuos shelo zarak. Right? If somebody swears that so-and-so threw a pebble into the sea or didn't throw a pebble into the sea. Now, he can't swear that he will throw a pebble into the sea. You can't swear about whether or not somebody else will do something or not. It's not up to you for them to do it. But you can swear that, that they did do it. So Rav Omar, Chayev, Shmuel Omar Potter. Rav says, Chayev, Shmuel says Potter. Rav Omar Chayev, Disa B'lavein. Rav says Chayev, because as long as it's yesable and knowable, he did throw a pebble, he didn't throw a pebble, so then you're chayav, it's enough, you're chayav. Shmuel Omer Potter Deleisa Bilahaba, where Shmuel says, yes, but it has to be futurizable, and you can't futurize that he will throw a pebble into the sea or not. It's not up for you to know if he is going to do it. Tzricha, we need both scenarios, the scenario of the pebble and the scenario of the Shevuos Shomer. The Ashmo'inon Beha, because if we only had the scenario of so-and-so throwing a pebble, Behaka Amar Rav, this is where Rav says, Chayev mishum diminavshe komishdebo. That's where Rav says that you'll be chayev for saying that so-and-so threw a pebble, because the swearer is swearing on his own. Nobody's making him swear. He's just swearing, so-and-so threw a pebble into the sea. But when it comes to Shevuos Shomer, where Bezdin is making him swear, well then, Shmuel, I might think that Rav would agree with Shmuel that it would be potter the Rab Ami, like Rab Ami, Rab Ami, Kol Shevuos Adayonim Mashbiyin Osa, Ein Chayavon Aleh Mishum Shevuos bitur. That if it's a Shvuah that a court is making one swear, well then you would not be Chayav Shevuos bitur for that. So I might think that in the case of Shevuos Shomer, maybe Rav would agree with Shmuel that it would be potter, but we see that Rav says there chayiv as well. Be itmar beha, and if we only had the case of Bezdin, maybe beha of the Shevuos Shomer, beha ka'amar Shmuel. This is where Shmuel says potter. But by the pebble, maybe we would agree with Rav that it would be chayiv. Tzricha, therefore you need both the case of the pebble and Shevuos Shomer. Gufa Rab Ami had said earlier, just a few lines earlier, Kol Shevuos Adayonim Mashbiyin Osa Ein Ba Mishum Shevuos bitur. Any Shevuah that Bezdin compels one to swear, there will not be any violations of Shevuos bitur. Shenemar, as the Apostle says, O Nefesh Kisi Shava Levate Bisvasaim, right? Kisi Shava Me'atzmo. When it says Kisi Shava, it means on his own, when he does it on his own. That the word ki can mean one of four things: if, maybe, rather, and that. So means if. So here it means like if a person swears, but on his own. So chayav for a korban Shevuos bitur when you swear on your own, not if you're sworn compelled to swear by Bezdin. Reb Elazar says, Elazar, Kulan Pturin Mishvuas Shom V'Chav Mishvuas Bita. So Elazar agrees with Rav that in all the scenarios in the Mishnah, one would be potter for Shvuas Shomin, i.e. potter for Ken V'Chomish V'Ashim, but Chayav for Shvuas Bita, like Rav says, Chutz Me'eni Odea Ma'atasoch Dishoyel, except for if a shoyel, a borrower, says, I don't know what you're talking about. In that case, he'd be chayiv because he's making a claim that he'd be potter for when really he was chayiv. As well as an osei socher or a socher who claims that it was an ones when really it was stolen. Gneva v'aveda, they would be chayiv there as well because they are claiming that they're potter when really they're chayiv. Shu chayiv sharei kafar mammon, because in both of those scenarios, the socher or the shoel or the shomer socher / socher are making claims that they would be potter for when really they're chayiv. So in that case, they would be chayiv karen v'chomish v'ashim. Okay, well that is the 49th page. That's the Memtes of Masechta Shevuos, and it is also chapter 8 of Masechta Shevuos. It is also the last daf of Masechta Shevuos. Hadron Olach Arba Shomen V'Slikala Masechta Shevuos. Wow, Masechta Shevuos was a piece of work. I was not expecting that. I learned a little bit of Masechta Shevuos many years ago. I did not realize how intense it would be. It was very geschmack Masechta, and I feel like in some ways also, first of all, this book that I'm learning from, right, the Gemara that I use, it's got Sanhedrin, Makos, and Shevuos in it. I mean, I think I did the math the other day, but Sanhedrin is like 113, Makos is 26, let's say 140-ish, and then this is like another 50, 190. I mean, that's about 6 months. We've been learning from this for mamish about 6 months. We're opening up a new book now. This, by the way, this is a 20-book Shas set. We've learned now 15 of 20 books, 3/4 of the way through Shas in terms of books. I imagine it's probably somewhere around accurate also in terms of actuality. Givaldig. Yeah, and with this it feels like we kind of like wrap up this big run that we had started probably like a year and a half ago or so with Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, Sanhedrin, Makos, Shevuos. I think it's about a year and a half, right? Yeah, it's about 4 months, 8 months, something like a year and a half, maybe a little more. So yeah, it feels like we're like wrapping up. It's a big momentous occasion. We're kind of wrapping up like a big piece of work. We're also wrapping up kind of like, we had a really long run of like Yeshivish and Masechtas as well. I mean, like starting all the way back from Yevamis, really. I mean, we had Yevamis, then Ksubis, then Nidarim, Yeshivish and Masechtas. And then we had Nazir and Sota, which are not, but then Gittin, Kiddushin, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. Sanhedrin isn't, Makos is, Shevuos isn't, but I mean, this is just straight up Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. So like, it's really, this is actually a pretty momentous occasion. We're really wrapping up like a pretty major run, in some ways starting with Yevamis, all the way back then. Tomorrow we start Masechta Avodah Zarah, and then Horius, after that, which wraps up Nezikin, and then after that we're going to be moving on to Zvachim and Kodshim. So anyways, shkoyach to everybody, give yourselves a big pat on the back. I will catch you tomorrow for Masechta Avodah Zarah. Peace out.